Well,
I think the virtual back.
we're halfway back into having church in the sanctuary. At least a few of us are here, and we're making plans for when this whole pandemic goes away. So, welcome and thank you for being here again. I'm going to get rid of my mask. There we go. I think it improves my look with the mask on, but oh well. I've been one announcement sort of before we reflect a little bit. Next Sunday is Communion Sunday. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to prepare communion elements that we will dedicate. And if you would like, and if we have some volunteers, on Saturday afternoon, if you can't get out at all, I'll get it. We will drop the communion elements at your door, ring your doorbell, and run away. And you can come out and get your communion elements and save them for Sunday morning, and we will all be set to take communion together next Sunday. If you can get out and you'd like to get out and you're feeling housebound and you just have to take a ride someplace, Tim and I are going to put a little table out front. You can drive up, pick up a little packet of your communion elements, and take them home for the service later in the day. So we'll have that out there from about 9 to 9:30 next Sunday morning. But if we have a volunteer and if you can't get out, call us. We'll drop off the elements on Saturday afternoon, and we'll all take communion again on the first Sunday, which is next week. So, I have been thinking over the last week what it must have felt like for the people of the Old Testament in particular to be in exile, to be carried off to other lands and other places. I've been thinking of the journeys that people in the Old Testament have gone through. I want to reflect on a couple of those this morning and just make some observations, because I think it's important for us not just to know the stories of the Old Testament and the New Testament, but to see the meanings behind them that help us get through the things we're going through today. One of the first characters that comes to mind is Moses. Now, Moses was born in Egypt when his basket was in the rushes there, and he was left for Pharaoh's daughter to find. He grew up in the royal household of Egypt, and then he realized that his people were the people who were being held in slavery. And Moses felt that God was calling him to lead those folks out of Egypt back to their ancestral homeland, back home again. 10 different times, Moses tried to get Pharaoh to let them leave peacefully. I don't know why, but I was thinking of all the different cries that are going around today. Open our stores, open our bars, open our restaurants. Some people just don't realize that there are times to be by yourself, times to be with others. Georgia's beaches are open, but there is pandemic spreading still. We have to learn patience and what is the right time, what is the time God blesses for us to be able to move on, not just whenever we feel like it. And I think that's an important lesson. And thinking back to Moses, 10 different times he went to Pharaoh and said, "You have to let my people go." And 10 different times Pharaoh said, "Yeah, all right," but then he changed his mind. So we have recorded in the Old Testament 10 plagues. 10 times God tried to interfere to tell Pharaoh, "You've got to keep your word. You've got to let these people go. These are my people. I will watch over them." And I'm amazed at how much patience Moses must have had to live through all this. Yes, no, yes, no. It's anxiety producing when you know that there's something you need to be about. Patience leads to wisdom. Wisdom leads to comfort. Comfort leads to a rich, full, and meaningful life. Moses learned that lesson. We're learning that lesson. We're being taught just as he was taught in our day and age. And then I was thinking about Abraham. God made promises to Abraham that your people will be a great people. I will make your people spread throughout the earth. And there's just one little caveat. You have to take your son up to a mountain and stab him to death. What? And can you imagine the anxiety of Abraham thinking, this can't be real? You had that feeling in the last 10 days? This can't be real? Of course you have. And it's very real to us today as well. The patience that Abraham must have had taking that young child up onto the mountain, knowing that death was at the end of this little pilgrimage, but learning that being obedient and patient would have its benefits. And just as he was about to do that, God put his hand on Abraham's hand and said, "No, you've proved your point. You're faithful." You know, I think it's important today. I watch a lot of TV evangelists. I don't know why I do. I think I like the music more than the message, but I watch them. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's something that I was taught years and years ago. We're not called to be successful. We're called to be faithful. And so many times I see on the television calls for success. Success. No, God doesn't call us to be successful. God calls us to be faithful. And we need to remember those distinctions. Faithfulness is patience. Abraham was patient with God, even though he dreaded the thought of what he was being called to do. And in the end, God delivered his promise to Abraham. And then, of course, there's the penultimate patient person, Job. You've heard the stories of Job in the Old Testament. You've read the stories, you've taught the stories, you've memorized the stories. Job was a rich man, very successful, had unlimited herds of cattle, a beautiful family, a gorgeous home, wealth, prestige. And then God and Satan got into an argument, I guess, of some sort of, can we bring this man down? And you have all these things that happened to Job. He lost his health, he lost his family, he lost his possessions. And all his friends said to him, "Hey, give it up, man. It's not worth it." But throughout all of this, Job keeps saying, "No, I trust that if I'm patient and if I believe, what's going to come of this will be good. Well, brothers and sisters, I guess that's the bottom line this morning. What's going to come of this will be good. Not what we expect, not what we hope for. Some of us may make it, some of us may not. But we'll keep our masks on. We'll keep our prayer circles going. We'll keep our faith up. And in the end, we know that if we're faithful, God will bless us. God will carry us through this. As the sign said out in front of the church a few weeks ago, hang in there. And hang in there with faithfulness. Over and out. How do I look?